success to you, but they've been in trenches for years and years, putting together the moves, pacing themselves, being realistic about the opportunities that are out there. We can name any number of great successes right now that didn't happen. The companies or the people who were behind them were about to pull the plug, but some little step made that person not give up, and now they're a household name. They're one of the biggest successes out there, or they're making a tremendous living even under the radar, you know. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because, again, a lot of people, you know, especially back in the day, they all wanted a big record deal and they hoped for that big, like I say, hit single on the radio or MTV to grant them with the big new, you know, release of the, you know, their video world premiered on the channel. But those days are long gone, and the opportunities, you see some of the most successful artists out there doing it independently. You guys have probably heard about Tech Nine, the independent rap artist, the hip hop artist, just turned down a $60 million deal like it was nothing. I mean, he is building an empire, building a touring schedule, building an amazing network out there that's going worldwide. The venues keep getting bigger. He's doing 6 figures a night in venues like House of Blues size. So doing amazing stuff. But even Jay-Z's an independent artist. Of course, Metallica is an independent band. A lot of these bands, when their record deals are done, Motley Crue just did the final tour. They haven't had a major label deal in over 12 years. There's ways with great distribution, promotion and marketing, film and TV placements, touring, merchandising, endorsements. To do this, you might not be the top 10 pop artist, but as long as you're able to make a living at doing what you love to do, now you're able to focus all your focus on doing this full time. And those opportunities can exponentially grow. You're one step away, or one song in a movie away, or one album or one tour to put you in a whole nother level. So a lot of that is sustaining yourself and the patience and the pacing that it takes. So we're going to go down the line and talk a little bit about the tortoise and the hare examples of whether it was something you yourself experienced or some other act you saw that really started at a slow pace, but now when the hares of the world have all been dropped and forgotten about, they are standing tall and having an incredible audience and business. Dakota, talk a little bit about the Warped Tour. Obviously, you and Kevin Lyman and the great crew have been, you know, part of this Warped Tour extravaganza every summer for 20-some years now. Talk about examples of any of the acts that you've seen that literally didn't necessarily have a big hit on the radio, but now are consistently packing mid-size halls and one of those, you know, great underdog success stories.
You know, I was actually talking about this last year on the Warped Tour because I'm a firm believer in a decade. I think that a decade is a really important amount of time that you need to grow into yourself, whether you have overnight success or not. It's a lot easier to get noticed earlier, and so that's where a lot of people feel like maybe that is the way that it happens. You know, even if you get noticed, there's still the battle of figuring out how to do it. You know, think about Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters when he left Nirvana. You know, he was the Foo Fighters, but the Foo Fighters was a brand new band. They literally experienced every hardship that a young band has in the public eye, and that's really difficult in its own. You know, with Warped Tour, we have countless artists that come through every year that all have their own steez, you know, and I say steez because that's kind of the word that I would use. It's they all, like all of them are rock stars in their mind, whether they are or not. You know, that's the test of 10 years maybe, right? If that artist is playing a decade later on the Warped Tour, you know, it can be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. And there's a lot of interesting ways to utilize that community, right? I think that the best example, you said to have an example, of a band that killed it on the Warped Tour and then grew to bigger and better things is a band called A Day to Remember. A Day to Remember is, they really broke in right when pop punk was really coming back. You know, people were into heavier music, but they were able to kind of break into this new trend that was hitting, right? They went out on the Warped Tour, and not only did they utilize the techniques of meeting their fans and seeing people, but they really thought about it in a merchandising and branding perspective. They went out there, they were the only bands that had gigantic stage props of their heads playing behind them. They were the only band that had 3 merch booth setups. You know, they had like a 30